Yeah, here it is, just 4 days before my last day at NASA. I have enjoyed it very much. It seems just like yesterday that I came here. And I came here from NC State. NC State trained me down there. It turned out that there was an interview on the day I had my prelim exam, and it was impossible to get a place to interview, so they said just come in at the end of the day after your exam and maybe the NASA interviewer will let you in the room. So just by serendipity, I stood outside and waited for the last interviewer and asked if I could come in. I came in and had a good talk and somehow wound up here. Then when I first came, they had just started up a NASA structural analysis program called NASTRAN, which is still used today. It's the biggest structural analysis program in the world. But it was just starting up, and we had a chance to evaluate it. And we evaluated it on the Viking at that time, which I thought was neat because my background is Norwegian, and here's a Viking project to go to Mars. Well, nobody had ever landed on Mars, so the idea was, can we actually land and take soil samples and so on? And the GCMS box I worked on was Gas Chromatograph mass spectrometer, and we worked on the housing for that. And so the idea was that's where the soil samples would be dropped in, and then they'd split two ways. One way would do a gas chromatograph, which kind of burned it and saw what the different segments it was made up of, and that would detect life. And then the other one was the mass spectrometer, which we still use today on space missions. So they had a Tiger team because there was a problem with one of the containment boxes for the gas chromatograph mass spectrometer. It was just leaking. Of course, it has to not leak, so we designed in a short period of time a completely new box and tested it here at Langley, and then gave the drawings to Litton Industries to actually make the Langley box. So it's called the Langley box, which worked and flew. It was supposed to hold for 9 months at the Cape, and then 9 months in flight to Mars, and then 9 months on Mars. So it was launched in August of 1975, the Viking 1, and then the Viking 2 a month later, and then it went to Mars and circled. It wasn't only a lander, but it had a orbiter plus a lander. So the orbiter and the lander, for two of them, everything worked fine. It orbited for a while and then went down to land on Mars. It lasted with Viking 1 6.5 years on Mars, and Viking 2 3.5 years. And that was a wonderful time to see that our country was moving forward and actually going to Mars. And this sampler, if you look at it, would come down, scoop up something, bring it up, and drop it in this canister and split down. And one joke at that time was, what if there was some life on Mars that might come and destroy our Viking? They said, well, we'll take this little hand that comes up and just go like this and scare it. But of course, we were looking for fundamental life, and nobody expected there would be a being coming around. So that was a very successful project, and I enjoyed it. It was one of the first projects that had been run entirely at Langley. Most of the projects are done other places, but Ed Kortright, our director, decided to take it on at Langley, and it was a very successful project with Mars. I might also say that when I came here, my supervisor was Bob Fulton. We called him Steamboat Bob. He was the type of supervisor who had two characteristics I liked. He treated people who worked with him as his people, and he was like a mother hen. And he tried to isolate us from all of the higher level bureaucracy, and he was very successful in doing that. The second characteristic with Bob was he treated the management structure in a flip-flop. Like usually you see the director and everybody up here, and you're this little guy down here. And he said, look at it the other way. Engineers are the ones that this center is for, and all these other people are supporting you. So it's like they are supporting you and you're on the top, which is an interesting thing. So that was kind of my first initiation at Langley.